Every morning, millions of people wake up at the same time. They leave their homes, sit at desks, stand in factories, or open their laptops. And for 8 hours, they give their time to work. Not because they all agreed to, not because it is natural, but because at some point in history, someone decided what a working day should look like. And that decision is still shaping our lives today. Before work had hours, it had rhythms. For most of human history, people did not organize their lives around a clock. They organized them around light, weather, and survival. In agricultural societies, work followed the sun. People began at dawn, paused when the heat became unbearable, and stopped when darkness made work impossible. There was no fixed starting time, and no universal ending time. A working day could be long during harvest and surprisingly short in winter. What mattered was not how long someone worked, but whether the work was done. The same was true for craftsmen. A blacksmith did not work for 8 hours. He worked until the tools were ready. A tailor did not count minutes. He counted finished garments. Time was measured in tasks, not in numbers. Historians describe this as task-oriented labor, a system where work ends when the task ends, not when a clock says so. Even in medieval cities, bells rang to mark prayers or events, not to regulate productivity. Life was hard, often brutal. But time itself was not yet a commodity. No one sold hours, no one bought them. That idea would come later, and when it did, it would quietly change how humans understood work, discipline, and even themselves. When work entered the factory, time changed its meaning. The Industrial Revolution did not just introduce machines, it introduced control. Factories needed coordination, hundreds of workers, dozens of machines, all moving together. And for the first time, time became something that had to be measured precisely. In early factories, working days often lasted between 12 and 16 hours, 6 days a week, sometimes more. Men worked, women worked, and children worked. Not because it was cruel by design, but because the system demanded it. Machines did not stop when the sun went down. They stopped only when human bodies collapsed. Factory owners began to realize something important. If workers arrived at different times, production slowed down. So clocks were installed, not as decoration, but as tools of discipline. Historians describe this moment as the birth of time discipline. Workers were no longer paid for what they produced. They were paid for how long they stayed. Time itself became measurable, divisible, sellable. Minutes mattered. Seconds mattered. Being late was no longer a personal issue. It was a financial one. In many factories, doors were locked at a fixed hour. If you arrived late, you were simply not allowed in. Fines were introduced. Wages were deducted. Time was no longer flexible. It was enforced. This shift was deeply unnatural to many workers, especially those who came from agricultural backgrounds. They were not lazy. They were simply not trained to obey a clock. Resistance followed. Workers protested long hours. They protested exhaustion. They protested the idea that a day could be owned by someone else. By the early 19th century, these protests began to organize. Slogans appeared. One of them became famous: 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. This was not a demand for comfort. It was a demand for balance. And for the first time in history, the length of a working day became a political question, not a natural one. The demand for shorter hours did not disappear. It evolved. By the late 19th century, industrial societies faced a dilemma. Factories needed workers, but exhausted workers were inefficient. Angry workers were dangerous. Strikes spread, unions formed, governments began to worry. The idea of limiting working hours was no longer radical, it was practical. Across Europe and North America, experiments began. 10 hours, 9 hours. Different limits, different industries. But one number kept returning: 8. Not because it was perfect, but because it was symmetrical. A full day divided into 3 equal parts: work, rest, life. 8 hours was not a scientific discovery. It was a compromise. One of the most influential moments came in 1914 when Henry Ford made a surprising decision. Ford reduced the working day in his factories to 8 hours, not out of generosity, but out of calculation. He noticed something counterintuitive. When workers worked fewer hours, they produced more. They made fewer mistakes. They were absent less often. They stayed longer. Productivity increased. Profits followed. This decision sent shockwaves through the industrial world. If shorter hours meant higher output, then long hours were not efficient. They were wasteful. Soon, other companies followed, then industries, then governments. Laws were introduced, first in specific sectors, then nationally. By the early 20th century, the 8-hour day had become a legal standard in many countries. But something subtle happened in the process. What began as a limit slowly became an expectation. 8 hours was no longer a maximum. It was the norm. Working less felt suspicious. Working more felt responsible. The compromise hardened into a rule. And once rules enter systems, they rarely disappear. The world changed, but the working day did not. Technology advanced. Machines became faster. Tasks that once took hours could now be done in minutes. Yet the structure of the day remained the same. 8 hours of work, 5 days a week. The reason was not efficiency. It was stability. Once laws were written, institutions formed around them. Education prepared people for fixed schedules. Transportation followed the same rhythm. Cities were built around rush hours. Entire economies synchronized themselves to the same clock. The 8-hour day stopped being a choice. It became infrastructure. Companies planned around it. Governments regulated it. Lives adjusted to it. Changing it would require changing everything else. So instead of asking whether 8 hours still made sense, societies learned to optimize within it. More meetings, more screens, more multitasking. Time felt full, even when productivity did not increase. In many jobs, people were no longer measured by what they produced, but by how long they were present. The clock survived, not because it was ideal, but because it was convenient. And convenience is powerful. The 8-hour workday was not designed for the world we live in today. It was shaped by factories, machines, and a time when control mattered more than flexibility. Yet we still live by it. Not because it is natural, not because it is perfect, but because it became familiar. We did not choose this rhythm, we inherited it. And perhaps the real question is not who invented the 8-hour workday, but why we never stopped to question it. If you found this story worth your time, consider subscribing to the channel. And if there are ideas, systems, or questions you would like us to explore next, leave them in the comments. We read them, and many episodes begin there.